Paula, welcome to Future Speak. What surprises have you had by going fully remote?
I just really had to take that leap of faith and trust them. And I'm so glad that I did. I was able to just really see a different way once we went home.
Paula, welcome to Future Speak. I'm really excited to have you on today. And thank you, especially considering you were up so early from your holiday. I am so grateful to you. As we know, we're here today to talk about the future of work, but to bring it to life for real people. What does the future of work mean for individuals? What does it mean in terms of opportunities, challenges, and also the great work that you're doing as founder of Innovate HR? I'd love you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and Innovate HR and some of the great things you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on this morning. I'm excited to be here. And hello from Telluride, Colorado. Innovate HR was founded almost 13 years ago with the idea that employers should be able to outsource their HR function, but still have customization and service, and a way for employees to be top of mind in the workspace. It's been an interesting evolution over the last 13 years. I've seen different economies and different times and different needs in just that short span of time. And the needs have changed dramatically every few years, especially as we've gone through the last 2 years due to the pandemic. So we are based in South Carolina, and we service companies in 38 states from our home office. And we actually, about a year or two, just went completely 100% remote ourselves after COVID, but then also seeing some changes just in the workforce and adapting ourselves. So we have firsthand experienced a lot of things that our clients and other employers are experiencing, the demands, the changes, and the needs in terms of people as individuals in the workforce. So I'm excited to be here this morning and talk about that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Paula. And I've seen firsthand just how well remote working is working for you and your team, and the fact that it's enabling them to really come to work as their whole selves. What surprises have you had by going fully remote in terms of positive surprises that possibly you hadn't thought of before now?
Yeah, I was actually the biggest skeptic in our company in terms of going remote. We already did flexible work arrangements for a predominantly all-female team at the time. And when COVID hit, we went home. And it, like many other companies during that 3 or 4 month duration, it was eye-opening for me. The productivity did not fail, and how everybody just jumped in and pitched in and did what they needed to do. And when we returned to work, it was more eye-opening to me at that point because no one wanted to return. They had found balance in their lives. They were able to juggle being at home with their children and doing things that made them feel better as a balanced employee. They were able to get exercise. They were able to walk their dogs. They were able to take care of their children, make dinner for their families at a suitable time, and also work at the same time when the demand needed them. And when it didn't, they were able to have a little bit more flexibility in their lives. So I decided if I was going to be a competitive employer in the market, which it was already at that time tough to find great talent, that I really needed to listen to what my employees needed and what they were telling me. And I just really had to take that leap of faith and trust them that this would all work out. And I'm so glad that I did. I was able to just really see a different way once we went home. So it's worked out very well. I wouldn't do it any other way at this point. People seem very balanced in their lives, yet they are working harder than ever. The HR space, as we all know, is extremely demanding right now. And if you're not doing things to take care of your employees or really listening to your employees, then they're going to go elsewhere. And so you really have to listen to that. So on the positive note, I've been asked so many times if the productivity has declined, and quite frankly, it's increased. We've seen better work, more creative work. They're excited to be at work, and they're able to juggle their lives at the same time. So I think it's just been a really positive move for us overall.
Fabulous. And as I said, having seen you and the team thrive firsthand, it's a shining example, and one I always think of when I'm talking to skeptics who use terminology like, I can't wait to go back. To any leaders listening into this today who themselves are still skeptics, what one piece of advice would you ask them to look at, having been through this journey now and frankly having an incredibly productive and engaged workforce?
I think you have to be prepared to have a workforce at home. I think you have to understand that technology has to be first and foremost and top of mind. So if you yourself, or if your culture and your organization isn't technology driven, then you need to get there. You need to have the tools and the resources and the support from a technical and IT structure so that you can work from home and also protect your company from all the things like ransomware and things like that. So I think that is step one. Step two is putting policies and procedures in place that adapt to the at-home workforce and make sure that those operational understandings exist and how people navigate through that when they're at home versus when they're in the office. And I think third, which is probably the most important, is really understanding and preparing to manage and lead people from home as opposed to in the office. There are a lot of differences in how you lead at home and versus in the office, because it really takes a leap of faith. It takes a lot of trust, and it takes a different style of accountability. And when folks are doing what they're supposed to, obviously you're leading them, you're acknowledging them, you're congratulating them and recognizing them. But also when they're not doing what they're supposed to do, how do you hold them accountable? And you can't hold them accountable if they're a few minutes late for work. You can't see if they leave a little bit early to go get their hair done at the salon. All of those things that are evident and visual in the workplace no longer exist. So you really have to learn to fight the big battles and not the small battles, and lead in that way, and also make sure that your management leads in that regard as well. So it takes a different mindset. It takes a shift in thought. And even I, after 2 years of doing this, still have those natural tendencies to, wonder where someone is if they're not available for 15 minutes. But you really just have to get over yourself and focus on the work and what's important with the work. And are they meeting the deadlines, and are they achieving their goals, and are they pleasing the clients, and the things that actually really matter in the business, I think, are how you lead folks at home. And all the rest of the small stuff really just kind of has to be thrown out the window. And I think the employees appreciate that mindset as well, because they're trusted and they know that what they're doing is important. And if they knock off for 15 minutes to go walk the dog, That's the benefit of working from home. And I think that you truly have to work with your management team to understand that and not focus on those small things. So those are kind of 3 big tips that I would give.
Brilliant. And I love that, Paula. And interestingly, I was talking to a founder late last week who had huge concerns about being able to bring in fresh talent and the whole onboarding piece with a rapidly expanding team to be able to, one, train them up and to help them to be immersed in the culture of their organization. And it's something I'd love you to talk about your perspective and views on that, because again, it's something I've seen you do exceptionally well over the last year.
Yeah, no, that's a really excellent point. We did trial and error with that, and it is a big change, because when you're used to having employees come into the office and working with different people and training firsthand, it is a very different experience when all of a sudden they're working from home. I think the first part is that you have to make sure that in the recruiting process, you're hiring someone who has the capability and the natural temperament to work from home. A lot of folks think that working from home, who have never done it before, sounds exciting, and that's what they're looking for until they actually do it. It requires a specific individual who is extremely self-motivated, and can motivate themselves to be at work when they're supposed to get their work done during the day, and also be okay with not being physically around other people. We're in the HR space, which means that our people are naturally people. And so it's hard for people not to be around other people physically for long periods of time. So that has been a challenge for us. If you have a love of people, but you are okay with not being around people, it's kind of an oxymoron. So it's really a discussion in the hiring process or the recruiting process, really, and doing assessment tests to see, is this person really capable of having that type of personality? Do they love people, but can they also be independent? And I think that independent part is extremely important in finding the right people to work from home. As far as the onboarding goes, we had to revamp an entire process. And when we hire people, we actually made the decision when we went remote that we would do what is called remote local. So we're kind of a hybrid in terms of a remote workforce, in that we ask for people who work for us to be within a 2 to 3 hour drive distance from our headquarters, which is now me, essentially, in Greenville, South Carolina. So we do get together once a month physically, because we think that that's really important, or as often as we can. But when we bring on new folks, we actually get the entire team together. The new folks are actually physically, we have a hybrid workspace that we rent, and we have the new folks in person with the rest of the team for 1 week. And that has a lot of advantages, because it gets them physically in front of everyone. They get to meet the team, and it gets the team together, because they miss being around people as well. So we found that is very valuable in the process. And they're training with people for 1 week together with different team members physically, but then the rest of the 6-week training process that we put into place is virtual. So we're trying to do the best of both worlds. And I think employers don't have to be within a 2 to 3 hour time difference. They just have to make the decision and the investment to be able to fly in folks and know that that's just part of the process. And a lot of companies already been doing that for a very long time, even though they weren't working in a remote workforce, but they were very decentralized all over the country. So a lot of employers are already doing that and bringing people in for a week or two of training. So to me, it shouldn't be a difficult transition.
Absolutely. And we're reading more and more about the fact that actually, when we are bringing these teams together, it is you're working in a different way, right? So they might be coming together for, as with your team, for one day a month, but actually they're not coming together to necessarily physically work their day job. They're coming together for a different aspect, and therefore creating a destination, if you like, and a different environment from what we now know is a traditional and maybe slightly old-fashioned office now needs to change.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And we do that. We always do fun things. We try to make something fun each time. And there is a team building component each time, because we're very cognizant of the fact that people feel alone and they haven't been able to get together. And it's a really good time for people just to connect on a different level rather than the actual work. So we do both.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I've seen some of the photographs and, through your Instagram accounts, and it's, you really have got that great balance of connectivity, of trust, of independence. If you were to look back now at yourself right at the beginning of this long journey, what one piece of advice would you give yourself? I'm sure it's going to help people watching this today.
Absolutely. Do it sooner. I would have done it sooner rather than later. We moved into a new building about a year and a half before COVID hit. And in that moving into the new building, I reworked all of our technology so that our employees could have a flexible workspace or work arrangement and actually get work done from home effectively. And when COVID hit, we were able to just go home the next day and work without a interruption. And for the year and a half before that, it was a benefit to employees who had proven themselves that they could work from home. It was a rite of passage, if you will. And I thought that it had to be a rite of passage in order to allow someone to work from home, in order for me to trust them to do so. So I think the best advice that I would give to myself was just trust them from the start and provide the tools, the resources, and the culture to support them in working from home a lot sooner. I lost a lot of good people along the way who were looking for more flexible work arrangements, and moms who were looking for more life balance. And I think that would have made a difference to them in the years before. So do it sooner is what I would tell myself. So
I love that. And when we look forward to, say, the next 9 or 10 years, none of us know what's coming. We all have a sense that we're going through a period of increased accelerated change, be that technology, environment, political situation, etc. For your sphere and your businesses, and both for your organization and what you're seeing with clients, what do you see as opportunities over the next 5 to 10 years for yourselves that you're really looking forward to?
It's a really good question. And I attended a business function the other night, and I was astounded to learn that in our city that we live in, Greenville, South Carolina, which is one of the fastest growing cities in the country, that are within our city of Greenville, over 70% of our population as of today is now working virtually from home.
Wow.
And that was surprising to me because we are in a town that is growing rapidly. However, it is a very conservative culture and a very traditional type of place. And I was surprised to hear that. I think a lot of that is attributed to the fact that we're an attractive place to live. And so what I have heard in other HR conferences and things along the way over the last several months is that people are moving to places like Greenville, South Carolina. However, they're not working in Greenville, South Carolina. So we have a very attractive place to live. People are leaving, places like California, New York, but they're coming here to live, but they're not working for companies here. And I think that is something as we move forward that really has to be top of mind in terms of it's great if we have attractive places to live, but we want the people that are moving here to be part of our community and part of the solutions and what those solutions are. I'm as perplexed as everyone else. I see over my client base, everyone is challenged to find talented employees. On the labor side, it's extremely challenging. And for our hospitality clients, and in that space, they're the ones that seem to have been hit the hardest. And so I think that as we look forward to the future, and I've said this for a long time, but I think that I really believe this now more than ever. We have to home grow our own talent. We have to really focus on training and development, because if you can't find employees, you have to grow them. If you can't find trees, you have to grow them. And so I think that that's something that really needs to be a focus. And in my experience doing HR for over 25 years, training seems to have always been left behind. It's interesting for me as someone who is in the selling space. I'm in the business development world in terms of finding new clients for my company, and training is always top of mind for the CEOs and the business owners in the sales process. It's always a big source of discussion. It's always something they're very passionate about. However, what I have seen happen predominantly is that after we onboard a new client and we've gotten all the mechanics and the fundamentals of HR in place, and then we start encouraging the training phase and teaching and developing employees, it's always something that is either left behind or everyone's too busy to do. It's not a priority, but it was a priority, but then it is no longer a priority. And so I think as we move forward, it really needs to be something that is a priority for employers to really think about, because if they're not teaching and developing their employees, someone else is going to.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to learn and grow and be better and different. And talent is hard to find, and it's even harder to keep. And so when you find talented employees, you really have to invest in them in more ways than one. And I think that needs to be the priority as we move forward to function as a company and continue on. So that's what I think.
Yeah. And I think you're right. And I hear in that the balance between that being a huge opportunity and also a threat, because it's not very clear where it sits on a company's priority list. And if they're not clear, then they're not giving their workforce what they need in order to develop and evolve. And we're hearing so many interesting things come out of HR space and through other opinion formers, with things like, I think on average at the moment, the tenure of an employee is 2.8 years, and we're anticipating that going down to 2.5 this year, or most certainly next year. So that training and development piece is going to be huge.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So, Paula, I'm really conscious of you devoting your time, so I only have a couple more questions for you. The one is, out of our conversation today, if there were 3 things you wanted people to take away, to remind themselves as takeaways after listening to our conversation, what would that be for you? What would you want them to take on board and think about?
I think the biggest thing for me and something that I've had to learn along the way, and I'm still working on it, but I think that in order for you to have trust with your workforce, you have to trust them as well. I think that trust is a two-way street, and I think that is the future of work because of the virtual landscape. And I think trust is first and foremost. Accountability is the next, because I think that you have to hold employees and your workforce accountable, but it has to be done in a new and different way. And I think last is to have fun. I think that when you are having fun at work yourself, and I think that you are inspiring that in your culture and your employees, and you're providing a culture and a climate for that people will want to come to work for you. And I'm not talking about ping pong tables and things of that nature. I'm just talking about, in your everyday interactions as leaders in a business, don't forget to have fun and inspire fun with your workforce. So
I love that. And it's so important, isn't it? It's the human aspect of all of this that is pivotal, really. And my final question, Paula, and this is a biggie. If you could take one thing to a desert island and we were to dispatch you tomorrow, what would you take?
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. I don't know. This is such a hard question. I am a big fan of the show Survivor, so I should know this answer very well.
Don't worry. We've had people sneaking a family one day and object the next.
Gosh, the thing that I have always said that I would bring in on a deserted island in watching these shows where they do this is the net, the mosquito net.
Yeah.
It serves a lot of purpose because obviously it helps keep the bugs off of you. And I would never survive on a deserted island for the bugs alone. The bugs would do me in. But also you can fish with it and you can find food. So I think between the bugs and the food, if I could get past the irritants and actually feed myself, I think I would be okay. I think I would survive.
I love that answer. It's awesome. Paula, thank you so much for your time, your energy, and your vitally important insight today. It's always great talking to you. You share so much. Thank you. And I will leave you to go back to your holiday. And I'm so sorry we dragged you out of bed so early for this.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm sorry I wasn't up earlier. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And it's lovely to always talk with you, Sam. I learned so much through you as well. So thank you.
Pleasure. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Okay.